On September the 11th, 1992, Hurricane Iniki made landfall on the island of Kauai as a Category 4 hurricane. Iniki reshaped the way we think about hurricanes in Hawaii. But Iniki was a long time ago. As memories fade, it's easy to become complacent. With the hazards we face, being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and with a warming climate and the extreme weather we're seeing around the globe today, we wondered, what lessons can we learn about Iniki today? And who could share information about lessons they learned? We caught up with a number of individuals who were impacted and responded to Hurricane Iniki. We asked them what lessons they learned and what advice they would provide to us as we look forward to other potential storms that may impact the islands.
The story of Iniki is a story of courage and resilience of Kauai's people, and it's also a story about the goodwill and aloha that came to us in such great measure from so many organizations and individuals. It was traumatic and a very devastating experience, but it had a silver lining. It made us think about what was really important. And when we thought we had lost everything, we realized that we had a lot. We had our lives and our loved ones and our neighbors and friends. Most of all, the will to rebuild our community.
The thing is, I actually remember vividly the day before Hurricane Iniki hit, because there was an excitement brewing in the air. Nothing to do at Hurricane Iniki. We were getting geared up to have our season opener for KIF football. So we were excited. The weather was as clear as can be, and nobody was thinking about that hurricane because all the forecasts, all the modeling had told us that this thing is so far south that it's not going to have any impact on our island. So
At that time, there was vague media coverage about this hurricane that was going through the south on a real straight path and was definitely going to pass by Hawaii. And one of the guys on the Kaua'i electric team, so I remember his parting words to yelling across the tarmac, "Don't worry, this thing's just going to pass right by, no sweat." Bye.
On duty with the U.S. Coast Guard, the day before Iniki hit Kauai, we were watching Iniki as it tracked westward south of the Big Island. Watched the news that night, 10 o'clock news, and Joe Moore was the newscaster. And we watched Iniki, and it made a right-hand turn. So I was thinking to myself, we were prepared for that right-hand turn.
You know, all indications that we had gotten from Civil Defense and the National Weather Service is that Iniki was going to pass to the south and west of Kauai, and so it was, going to spare all of us. Thursday night on September 10th, there was a big Democratic Party rally for all the Democratic candidates at the convention hall in Lehui. My wife pulled up with our two young children. So at that point, she said she had gotten a call from her mother, who is the publisher of the Garden Island newspaper, that we're going to get hit. And so at that point, I thought she was in possession of poor intel.
I was with Steven Spielberg on the set of Jurassic Park, and I made the grand mistake of letting him know that the hurricane wasn't going to hit until they were going to leave, and then we would have to deal with the hurricane. And he had no idea what I was talking about because nobody had told him about the impending hurricane.
It was business as usual, and the experts in civil defense were tracking it. And the change in direction came the day before. So I was actually on stage the night before Iniki with my counterparts from the other counties, and I got called off stage by my administrative assistant on the phone saying, "Mayor, you better come back. Come back now. because it's going to hit Kaua'i.
Parts of our state had no power for several weeks, and people were driven from their homes due to the unprecedented damage in the islands.
It was like a train was coming through the neighborhood, and the house was being hit.
One of the things we did, we had those trifold mattresses or futon that you put on the floor to lie down and watch TV. So we barricaded ourselves under a regulation-sized pool table.
I just remember the big picture glass windows in our living room flexing and breathing. The sound of the hurricane was not really able to be explained. Crunching, whistling and hissing.
The day it hit Kaua'i, it actually picked up a catamaran in the Willy Willy Harbor, and picked the catamaran up and went through the bridge of the Coast Guard cutter Point Harris and completely destroyed the cutter.
It literally looked like a bomb went off. It just was devastation. It just, you don't know until it happens that you wake up and just everything's blown to bits. So it was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my lifetime. It takes a toll on you. You drop the eggs and have a nervous breakdown right then and there. You shouldn't be crying that much for dropping an egg.
It was disaster everywhere. I mean, you just saw damage everywhere, ripped off buildings, roofs, condominiums without roofs, single family homes without roofs, no leaves on the trees, trash and debris everywhere.
But there was absolutely nothing standing on the island of Kaua'i at that time.
I remember driving by Kaua'i and just seeing it and thinking, my God, my surf break, our home break, our backyard, our playground is never going to be the same.
We have not had a hurricane to make a direct hit on the Hawaiian Islands since Hurricane Iniki. We've had some close calls. In emergency management, we say it only takes one. That is why it is so important to be prepared.
You want to make sure people have potable water. You want to make sure that people have enough food to eat.
Yeah, preparation is so important. I mean, there were big rushes to the store because people didn't have things at home that they needed.
And the grocery store was just chaotic. The look on people's faces told the story about what we're expecting. We see it happen when a hurricane warning is approaching and a storm is heading our way. Like everything else, you will have people running to the grocery store, getting last minute items. And of course, you'll see some people where it's evident that they're just starting to get ready now. And I can just tell people the peace of mind that you have, not having to rush to a grocery store when half the island is trying to get there as well. So you should just get ready.
We're here, you're in the middle Pacific, and you need to be ready and self-sustained to a point where you can take care of yourself and your family. Don't forget about your elderly, if you have kapuna with you as well for meds, and also pets.
We know at some point we will go through it again, and with climate change, we know the frequency is greater and the intensity is often greater, so we need to be prepared.
Okay, what would you do if you didn't have your phone? If you couldn't communicate, what would you do? And I think that's important to talk it through one time or two, just to say, okay, what's the plan?
What do you do if we have a hurricane warning? Where are we going to be? Where is a meeting spot? If there's a tsunami and I'm at work and the kids are at school, what are we going to do? If communication lines go down, how are we going to communicate? People, the more prepared you can get, the less panic you'll have if things should take a turn for the worse. And
The biggest lesson I would say is don't be complacent.
There's at least a whole generation since Iniki that have no direct experience. And so it's really good if you're helping people to understand the experience, because we're not going to have a hurricane-free future.
It will be bad. And how we conduct ourselves before, during, and after makes all the difference.
Our world has changed a lot in the last 30 years. One thing is constant is the aloha spirit and the communities that we have here in the islands. When we have an incident, take care of you and yourself and your family, and then get out and take care of your neighbors.
Knowing, who you might need to check on who's not mobile or has little kids, or, I think that's one thing that we're all pretty good about.
This Pat Fierro, who on the west side the night that Iniki happened, he noticed big saves. Windows were cracked. He put on his uniform and he stayed all night in the town watching. I know Kathy Richardson climbed over the fence to find out about her elderly neighbor. In fact, there's a story about Juan Gordinas, his wife was pregnant and was going into labor way up in Kaua'i. And their roads were all blocked.
Oh no.
And then he heard the beep, beep, beep of the big front loader or whatever was there to clear the roads. Come, I need it first. And Juan got to the hospital, and their Iniki baby was born.
And I remember hearing voices in the carport. Nakaya, you guys okay? It turned out it was our babysitter's husband and boy. They lived down the road. He said, "We saw your roof going off. Come our house." So come, because they're concerned about my kids because they babysit.
And all of a sudden, these military personnel who were out there trying to help residents of the community, they were eating the steaks that were in the freezer. They were eating the lobsters that were in the freezer as everybody was trying to make sure that they cooked their things before they spoiled. And they were genuinely surprised at that aloha spirit that was from the community. People were coming to help each other.
And it was neat to see people how they came together.
I think the strength of Kaua'i is, at the time, in 1992, most neighbors knew each other. We had wondered, does Kaua'i still have the ability to have that Kaua'i aloha, like that song that was created out of Hurricane Iniki? Do we still have that aloha spirit, put aside our differences, and have the community start just on their own, helping to clean up people's yards, helping to shelter people, helping to comfort people, helping to get supplies to our kupuna? The answer is a resounding yes.